Hi everyone. If you're new here, my name is Chelsea and I specialize in creating expressive portraits in oil and helping artists find their style and achieve their painting goals. Today I want to talk about a topic that I get asked about all the time, that artists and non-artists alike have a lot of misconceptions about: how to make money selling your art. Spoiler alert, it is not your website, it's not your business cards, and it's not even social media that helps you kick off this process. You don't need any of them, and I'm going to show you exactly why in this video. I work a lot with painters who are just making the leap to selling their work and are working toward painting full time. And I noticed that it's really common for us all to fall into a few traps along the journey to making your first sales from your artwork. And I want to take this opportunity to set the record straight and give everyone the complete order of operations to begin making money from painting. Before we jump into it, I want to tell you a bit more about where I'm coming from and how that may influence what I cover today. So I'm a realist painter working with a fairly traditional style. So I'm going to be talking about how to make money from that perspective today. But the principles I discuss here really do apply no matter what kind of art you're creating. I also make a living by selling my work online directly to collectors. So while I may mention galleries in here, again, I'm going to be speaking from my own experience. A lot of the same things apply though. So whether your goal is to get into a gallery or work directly with collectors, you'll want to be paying attention. All right, with that being said, let's get into this painting time lapse and let's talk about the very first thing you need to start getting sales from your work. First, you need to have a body of work made in a consistent style and with craftsmanship. Beyond making a lucky sale here or there to a friend or family member, collectors need to know who you are as an artist and what your work is about. That means you need to be able to show them at least a handful of pieces that are consistent in their style. Before you create a consistent body of work with clear craftsmanship, you do not need to worry about your website, your social media, your branding, anything. And that's a big part of why I wanted to make this video. I see painters trying to do this process out of order all of the time. So if this is you, I want to give you permission right now to put your website on hold, to put all of the social media marketing ideas you have on hold, because we have some painting to do. So let's talk about what a consistent body of work means. First, what do I mean by style? For the purpose of this discussion, I see style as encompassing everything from the techniques you use to execute the painting to composition, mood, subject matter, and even things like color palette. Now, this isn't one size fits all. You don't need to do 15 paintings that are near copies of one another in order to be consistent. These are simply some of the ways in which I notice artists creating consistency in their work. There are plenty of painters who have very defined techniques and mood, but paint all sorts of subjects. Or painters who maybe always paint one kind of subject, but very wildly in the color palette they prefer, or the way their images are composed. But at the end of the day, a potential collector should be able to look at your body of work and see at least a dozen paintings into which their favorite pieces of yours naturally fit in. And what about craftsmanship? This is a simple part of the equation, but one I think that artists can sometimes overthink or overlook. When you present your work to a collector, the presentation should look clean, thoughtful, and professional. That, in a nutshell, is what I talk about when I talk about craftsmanship. This can mean a lot of things, but in general, the things I think about are things like the back or the sides of your painting looking clean, and the work looking thoughtful and never slapdash. Sometimes things like a well-framed piece or a certificate of authenticity attached to the piece can accomplish that for you, but you don't need to sink money into these kinds of things in order to show your collector that you are serious about your career and ought to be treated as a professional. And as you can tell, it's actually a pretty small step, but one that really has a disproportionately large impact. Zooming back out to this idea of consistency as a whole, Honestly, I would say that most painters who are interested in beginning to sell their work or take on commissions haven't actually completed this step, and that's a big part of what's holding them back. And it's actually the hardest step in the process, but it means that once you're here, the rest is easy. If you think you may be stuck here, this is what I help painters with every day, and I would love to help you too. Below in the description is a link to book a strategy call with me to talk about your work and what's standing between you and achieving a consistent, identifiable style that you absolutely love creating. Okay, so what if you are actually already past this step? Well, once you have a body of work, we need to show it off. And no, you don't need a finished website or big social media account to do this either. So I describe this second step in this order of operations as consistently sharing your work and letting people know that it's for sale. This sounds simple and maybe silly, but we all actually fail at this all the time from my experience. If you're failing at it, ask yourself, how many people did I show my last finished painting to? Or did I tell them it was available for purchase? A great follow-up to that question is, did I tell them the price? I can guarantee that we all have probably had a painting that we thought would sell immediately, only to get no bites because we never told anyone that liked it that they could buy it. Okay, so how do we do this? First, I'd say to make sure that all of your friends and family know about a new painting that you absolutely love. You don't need to feel weird about it because you aren't pressuring anyone into buying anything. You're simply sharing with them a new piece that you're really proud of and excited about. The next step would be your existing social media following. And no huge account is required for this. So if you have an Instagram, a Facebook page, even a personal one, or a YouTube channel, share the piece and be sure to let people know it's available and how they could purchase it. And it's okay if how to purchase it is just to send you a message so that you can work out the details individually. You don't need any crazy website setup or to pay for an account with a payment processor to do this. Oftentimes, just having a PayPal or Venmo account is enough. Two other great options here in terms of sharing your work are in-person events such as art fairs or art walks, or sharing your work with galleries instead of directly with potential collectors if that's the route that you want to take your business. But don't let these things stand in the way of making your first art sales. You don't need to have a show to sell work, and a lot of the time we use waiting to get accepted to a show or a gallery as an excuse not to share our work with the people who actually want to buy it and give them that opportunity. All right, the third step in this process is one that you should really be working on concurrently with sharing your work. And that is that you need consistent pricing that fits with the market your paintings belong in. I get asked about pricing all the time, and it makes sense. Art is a luxury item, and its value isn't easy to determine. Complicating matters, as creators, we're super biased and often self-conscious about which pieces we love and which we hate and how much they're really worth. And it makes it tough to create consistency and trust that our prices are going to feel right to our ideal collectors. To combat this, pricing should be based primarily on size and should not be based on things like the time you took to make the piece or how good you think it is. This is because sometimes we just struggle with a piece and the time spent on it isn't an indicator of value. Or sometimes we think a piece is a home run, a smash hit, only to find that we just can't seem to sell it, and a piece we really didn't think much of flies off the shelf. But more importantly, I want to give an example that I think really illustrates this quite well. So imagine you're an art collector walking into a gallery or an artist studio. You see a piece that you're immediately drawn to. You see the price and you're excited to purchase it. But then you look at the piece next to it and realize that your piece is significantly less money. The pieces seem the same in just about any metric that you can quantify and kind of wrap your head around. They're the same size, the same materials, same subject. So is the one you love cheaper because it's somehow worse? This is exactly the scenario you don't want. So price your pieces consistently. And if the price tag just feels too high for your comfort on one particular piece, it probably means that piece isn't really consistent with your others and isn't representative of the consistent quality and style that you're trying to make yourself known for. So, to price a work based on size, price per square inch is generally the standard for realism or paintings that aren't especially large. Abstract pieces tend to span a larger size range and are more often based in a linear inch pricing scheme rather than square inch. So if you are like me and you're a realist painter, the way you would determine size is to multiply the length by the width of your particular canvas or panel you're working on, and then you would multiply that by the price per square inch. So how do you figure out what this price per square inch is? The answer is research. You want to make sure that you understand the market your work exists in, what your competition is like, and what your ideal collector expects to pay. Once you have gathered all of the data and understand all of those things, you eliminate the guesswork out of how much you should charge for your work, and you know exactly what you can ask for and trust that you can find a buyer for your paintings. If you're interested in the formula I use to price my work, including how to price your work if you're in or applying to galleries, how to account for the complexity of pieces, or how to price your work when you have a large gamut of sizes you work across, it's definitely more than I can fit into a single video. But it is something I regularly talk about with my students. If you'd like a step-by-step process and foolproof formula to price your work and implement all of the steps I talk about in this video, click the link in the description to book a free call to talk about your goals and to see whether we are a great fit to work together. Finally, we get to the end of the list. The last step in this process, the last thing you need to worry about in order to make money from your work. You guessed it, this is your website. Now, I am not saying that a website is not important. It is. It's a great place to let your collectors get to know you and invest in you as a person, as well as a creator, and a great way to display this consistent body of work you've been working so hard on. And it's an easy place where you can set up a friction-free checkout for people wanting to buy your work. But it isn't a prerequisite for sales and shouldn't take priority over the other things that we've already talked about in this video. But once you're at this step, it's important to make sure your website is first visually pleasing, that it fits with the tone of your work, that it lets collectors easily see your work all in one place. It has an easy way to purchase work, either via links to your galleries or a checkout function if you want to sell directly to collectors. And finally, that it lets collectors get to know more about you. This is something that I've been alluding to throughout this entire video. Selling work is about creating relationships with people. It's about letting people know who you are and what you're about and what your work is about, and wanting to support that and support you. That's why we start with family and friends, not total strangers. And eventually we do get to sell work to strangers, but that's through really consistent efforts to let them into our lives and into our studios in these small ways. So whether you're telling somebody about a new piece, or you are writing a blog post on your website, or you're getting something ready to share on social media, remember that this is about letting people get to know you. That is where all art sales originate from, and you want to keep that in mind. Once you do, I think you're going to see a real change in the way your work is perceived, and that's when sales start happening. Now, This is a high-level view of what your order of operations should be in order to begin selling work. But obviously, there is a lot more depth and nuance we could get into on any one of these points. If you'd like to do a deep dive on any topic here with me, make sure to book a call via the link in the description to discuss your painting goals and what is standing in your way. Until next time, I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll like and subscribe and even hit the bell icon so that you know when new videos come out. And again, until next time, I want to wish you all very happy painting. Thanks for watching.